I know these times won't last, even though they've been tough. Just let them know my people been had enough. Tell them we gon' rise up. We gon' rise up. We gon' rise up. We gon' rise up. I know these times won't last, even though they've been tough. Just let them know my people been had enough. Tell them we gon' rise up. We gon' rise up. We gon' rise up. We gon' rise up. Please, Lord, forgive them. They try to hold back and chill like they ain't know it was written. Break every chain. Want to free my people from mental prisons. With your eyes on the sparrow, I know we'll narrow divisions. Hope is the vote to keep us afloat just as you envision. Faith to erase the pain from all of our people slain. Desperate for change, actions to back up your spoken name. When they throw dirt on us, we use it to play the game. When it rains, we go greater together, no matter the weather. Trust these dark days, we're gonna get better. Know that love will be the light to guide all our endeavors. And even if the time should rise, we're riding forever. Why? We are mighty, we'll fight for our lives, cause we're time to live. Future is ours, the timing is now. Black will be proud, we're saying it loud, we gave it our all. There's so much more to give, we bringing down what we go. This is how it's gonna last, even though they've been tough. Just let them know my people been had enough. Tell them we gon' rise up. We gon' rise up. We gon' rise up. We gon' rise up. I know these times won't last, even though they've been tough. Just let them know my people been had enough. Tell them we gon' rise up. We gon' rise up. We gon' rise up. We gon' rise up. Never backing down for the cause. Trying to put our life on pause, cause we move in the image of God. No matter the hate that's spoken, our spirits remain unbroken. The divine man says you can't count us out. We are the answer. From the youth to the elders, ain't what you can tell us. Style of brilliance of mind, heart is bright as sunshine. Warrior spirits alive, so no, we won't be denied. So vibration is high, and the frequency so angelic, like. People, come on.
All right.
I know these times won't last, even though they've been tough. Just let them know my people been had enough. Tell them we gon' rise up. We gon' rise up. We gon' rise up. We gon' rise up. I know these times won't last, even though they've been tough. Just let them know my people been had enough. Tell them we gon' rise up. We gon' rise up. We gon' rise up. We gon' rise up.
Yeah, rise up.
Rise up. Peace and blessings, divine family. Welcome.
Yeah, you already know. This is Soundbytes International Radio, where Black consciousness is the claim. One world is the aim. We in here for the Earth's people every day, all day, you know, till the casket close. You know what I'm saying? And then we elevate, lift up higher.
Okay, because that is not the end.
So the beginning. So this is, of course, Hasir Khan Neferah, but to my right, always got to check, Neferah.
To my Atira.
That's right. And we here on a Sunday night. I guess this is like just kind of where we settle in. So yeah, it's Sunday night, 10:30. Want to give you guys, you know, something to latch on to, something to think about, something to pull you into your coming week. And, you know, just we want to keep the conversations going. This conversations about Blackness in the context of, you know, how do we, you know, associate and connect with our Blackness. Obviously, you know, it's talking to the Black community across the African Black diaspora. How do we connect with who we are and our conversation around that to get to a place of healing, to ultimately, you know, magnify our human experience and how we can work and elevate as people within the human condition with respect, love, and dignity as one people overall, right? Because you got to get to some healing before you can, you know, truly be within the space of love and even have a conversation about unconditional love and things of that
Ashe.
nature. But we gotta get to our people. We gotta get to ourselves. It's up to no one else but us, and as many people as possible having a conversation is what's going to put us in the frame of focus. You know what I mean? The more and more we have the conversation together, it's a collected, concerted effort, the closer we get. So that's just what it's about. You know, just refining that conversation
every day,
every single day. So Nefra and I try to have this conversation with y'all every week, as much as possible, whether it's on Instagram, whether it's through this live digital forum,
yes,
at least once a week, in person, whatever events and what have you that we can get in front of your faces. We
to compile and compound,
absolutely,
and grow and expand.
Yeah, we aim to do that. Grow and expand elevation there every day.
It is a life practice.
Yep, lights igniting other lights, another candle. So yeah, this is it's an interesting week. Interesting week. Yeah, it's a pretty interesting week. So we want to talk about great things happening. We're talking about tribute to the ancestors, which is it's an annual celebration, right? It's an annual celebration of the trials and the maafa of our people after the slave trade, and the people that we lost, the ones that made it across, the ones that were lost at sea or what have you. We speak to those ancestors and try to uplift them.
And we speak to also our contemporary ancestors.
And contemporary ancestors, right? To bring them into the space, to have them have the conversation with us, bring history to the contemporary fold, and really live and be the experience of what our ancestors set forth to do when they, came or lived or, on these shores to do, and then had those freedoms disrupted. So
I, as a journey to becoming, a journey of expanding ourselves, we have those commentaries set up for you so that we can just really connect with that whole experience of understanding what it is to have a walk with our ancestors,
right?
Because we've been enculturated to believe that any conversation with the ancestors is something that is derogatory or negative. It is actually the strength of the African to reference and always to honor the ancestors. It's not a religious perspective per se. It is embedded. Some of the practices are inside of the religious forum. But as we become as African people, as we elevate in our consciousness, and as we grow and expand our way and sense of being, because it's very necessary for us to grow our sense of being African, right? Because in our sense of being African, we understand that there is then a reason to honor our ancestors and to reference them and to invoke them and to keep them close and always remember the sacrifices that they made, because we didn't get here on our own accord. On the shoulders and backs of those that we stand, they gave us power and references that allow us to have access to an elevated frequency, an elevated vibration, to be encouraged and empowered. So the people of the sun,
yes,
years, a gathering of spirit, heart, mind of the African, and they go to have ceremony at the water in Coney Island. It just happens that it's at Coney Island. It's been at Coney Island, and it's a long day of communing, coming together, beautiful people, experiencing connection and prayer and supplication. And just standing in honor and in awe and humility of the journey that our people have taken. And while other people in the space, in the earth space, across the landscape choose to diminish the experience of Africans, African people are the people who created humanity on earth. And from African people expanded the world's landscape.
Yeah, sure.
And this has been documented. This is science, right? So we're talking about culture and normal generalizations around the world and how they and how positioning of African people has been diminished, which actually is none of my business. I'm not concerned with what your perception is and what your narratives are. I know who I am. I have my identity, and I walk, live, and breathe, and speak in that way. And that's that. And my invitation to you is that you learn to do the same, which is what I'm speaking. I'm saying the journey of becoming. Yeah. So there's a lot of narratives that we could talk about. I actually posted something earlier today about honoring our ancestors, and one particular situation was Tulsa, Oklahoma. And there has been a lot of different discovery around this incident that occurred in the 1920s, when there was an incident with a gentleman who worked in the integrated space, not necessarily integrated space. They were still in the Jim Crow South. There were still like black laws, black codes, et cetera, et cetera. But he was in a place where there was white workers, and he happened to be engaged with a woman in an incident where she claimed that he harassed or assaulted her. By the end of the day, by the end of the story, wrapping around, it ended up being that she was attacked, and white folks galvanized themselves and came to demand his head, and expected black people to give him to them. And then that also is juxtaposition next to Emmett Till being a 15-year-old in 1955. Tulsa, Oklahoma occurred in 1921, June 1st, 1921. And Emmett Till occurred in 1955. So this 15-year-old boy, coming out of the hostilities of segregation and civil rights and all of these things that were arriving, decides that he has to ogle this white woman by whistling at her, right? When it could cost him his life. Like in 2019, there are certain things that I talk to my son about in this world as he goes and moves about in this world. Right. It's a matter of being a responsible parent and also giving my son instructions so that he's not left ignorant. Because let me tell you something, ignorance can kill you as a black person in America today. Don't be dumb. And being dumb doesn't make it go away. Being ignorant doesn't make it go away, right? Ignoring it doesn't make it go away, right? So I give him this pep talk every now and again, and he's not 15. And I can tell you that it's no way he's walking down the street whistling at no white woman anywhere ever. It's not happening. So you're trying to tell me this 15-year-old in the height of church burnings, cross burnings, lynchings, and everything, decided that he was raised in a Christian Baptist church because his mother was. I was. My grandmother used to carry me to church in 1980, 85, such and such, sing in the choir in the 90s, et cetera, et cetera. And I can tell you there's a sense of strictness. And the way the Bible is presented in that, and I'm just creating I'm building it out in terms of a way to perceive information. So when they tell you that this little boy whistled at this white woman, I want you to tell me why you insulted my intelligence. Just tell me you guys wanted to kill a black man that day. Just tell me that's how that went down, because that's how that went down. Don't try to make pretend that he earned, which is what the cultural strata is of today. We pretend that when police kill black people, that they somehow earned that. No, just say that you're just a barbaric person and that hatred is in your heart and you are perpetuating anger and hostility and frustration and superiority, and you choose to take an African's life. Let's just say it what it is. Don't pretend that you have to do something to warrant this kind of treatment. Because our conscious minds as human beings, we want to believe that the system is meritocratic. We know good and well it's not. So if it was bad, you got bad treatment. If you did something bad, you earned it. No. Emmett Till was killed by these two white women who never went to jail, white men who never went to jail, much like Trayvon Martin, right? So we can just keep building it out, and all these answers that we get to honor, okay? So the Tulsa, Oklahoma case, all these different ones, and then we talk about what was the Devil's Punch Bowl? Oh my goodness!
Oh yeah,
20,000 freed Africans are captured, recaptured, and forced into this holding area, provided no food, no type of care at all. It's like you just house pigs, like you would do animals. They just put them into a cage, that concentration camps, and gave them shovels and just said bury them where they drop. Some of them caught smallpox, disease I can't even imagine. I can't even imagine what they were doing with the excrement.
Oh, God.
Right? There's systems to your human existence in this world.
Mm.
It's not just like, they was in a little, area with cool air and they had a water fountain.
A green room or something.
And they had a toilet, they had a latrine and, they had a washboard and everything. No, they didn't have anything. They captured them, put them in concentration camps here on American soil. And in that year, it is estimated that over 20,000 were killed at the Devil's Punch Bowl. And a little bit about this story, because there's a source reference material also on the page as well, where you're going to be able to see the source material around that. And you'll find that they said that in this, as time has passed, trees and things have begun to grow in that area with fruit. The locals will not eat the fruit because they know what fertilized that area. It's still a bit of a gorge, as the way that it kind of time has passed, etc. And the gorge in it is still kind of like sunken. And it was called the Devil's Punch Bowl. So that was 20,000 lives. One incident in one state across time of the malice, hatred towards African people. Now, as time has now over the landscape, we're clear that Africans were stolen from Africa, despite the relationships that some talk about, where they gave them to the Europeans for slavery, etc., and they didn't really know what was happening to their brethren once they got here to the coast. That might have been true at one point, maybe. But then there's several trips collecting Africans and taking them. So at some point, they were being kidnapped, loaded onto boat, chained, held at docking stations, the point of no return, right, in the Goree Islands, in South Africa, on certain docks across the seacoast of Africa, and then loaded into ships, brought to various places around the world. Because slaves were also being held in Europe, right? And prior to the transatlantic slave trade was a sub-Saharan slave trade.
Which no one really ever wants to talk about. For
no one,
strange reason.
Rarely ever even talks about, because we can't even get past the transatlantic slave trade. But if we talk about the transatlantic slave trade, then we have to talk about the sub-Saharan slave trade, right? And that was something like, I think it was something like 600 years prior to the transatlantic slave trade. I want to say something like 600. Can you check? Give me the numbers right quick.
Sure.
I'm going to get the numbers so we can be clear about that. But this is the journey of humanizing ourselves as people, and understanding that our living experience is not simply just so that we can go to work and have jobs and move around and shuffle papers and do this thing for our one life. Okay. And our journey of living as African people, as the Earth's people, as divine essence, is compiled of a lot more than simply the pursuit of acquisition. Because so many of us has made that our determination in this life experience that just about everything else is entirely lost. The living experience, if not for acquisition, if not for having to pay to live, because there was a time when that wasn't even a theory at all. That didn't become introduced, and it has now become so perverted and expanded, and we normalize dysfunction, right? Because water is not something that should be paid for. Air should be clean for everyone, right? Food is plentiful on the earth. The problem is we have buildings and towers and railroads everywhere consuming the Earth's space. So therefore, it might not be enough food, right? And then, we got to have 100, 400, 500 fast food chains and small restaurants that all need chicken or beef right? So we've normalized this consciousness of a need for acquisition on the backs of our ancestors who lived and flourished, millions and millions of them, for eras before McDonald's ever got here. Who have flourished long before that. There were islands. I even listened to a story of the Pygmy people, the Tanzania people of Tasmania, Tasmanian people of Tasmania,
right?
Where Europeans dropped over there and killed. I can't even, just wiped out the entire population and left 75 of them. There's another source material for that one as well. And we could talk about the hatred and the motivation of a consciousness that would have anyone arrive at a place where it becomes common stay to believe that I can just come over to your house. Somebody come into your house and want to take your TV. How you feel about that?
You got a rough estimate of the medieval times around when it started.
Okay.
Yeah. All the way up until 19th century or so. So it was a long period of time. And
wow.
It was a lot of I think wasn't even like a larger number of deaths that took place.
Well, the thing about the sub-Saharan slave trade is it really wasn't as much death.
Okay.
Because it was not because something, the sub-Saharan slave trade was Arab slave trade, right?
Right.
And Arabs and Africans are cousins.
Mm-hmm.
And really, up until about 20 years, about 20 years ago, whenever you would see people from a foreign coast or foreign land, they would always relate to the African as brother. It's not recently until everybody and their mama want to disassociate themselves with Africans.
It's just strange.
Everyone. It became it was like a wave that just came into our social climate where everyone just wants to disassociate themselves with African people. Black people, particularly Black American people, to be exact. But Arabs related to Africans like brother because they're like close related cousins.
Right.
So the slave trade has never been branded the way that it had become when it was in the hands of a European. In other cultures, there was one thing in the Arab slave trade that I do want to bring in. They created eunuchs, where they would castrate the men by cutting off their testicles. Eunuchs. Well, some pronounce it eunuchs. I pronounced it eunuchs. Got you. Same thing.
Either way, the shit is bad.
It's horrible, right? And they would cut off their testicles. And the reason being is because they did not want them mingling, integrating, intermixing. They didn't want biracial children. There wasn't a space for that, period. You my brothers, but my cousin, but you're going to stay over there with it. And they would come over there to work. They were brought in to work. They weren't treated like, things like using them for alligator bait, the way they did African babies here in America, used African babies for alligator bait, right? Because you just carry a baby for 9 months and give birth to it, and we need to go hunting because Europe needs alligator bags and shoes. And it was one of those luxury items.
Right.
So we need to produce this because trade is big now. Trade is booming. Trade is growing Europe's economy and building America.
I think that's part of it is like that's the business aspect of it too. Is currency. Kids with currency is in a sense of is the amount of labor that can be done, or just like use like you said, like piece is a piece to like offset or like build up luxury items for, you know, but here's alligator bait to like you said, make shoes and bags and things like
shoes,
that. It's
bags,
like
right.
it was just pieces, products. That's what, you know, how
Well,
people,
that was
people
the
would treat it.
psychosis.
You know, ripped out, like, you know, not even like, okay, proper pregnancy or anything like that. You want to think about that type of care, like what chattel slavery really was for our people during that time. And people always want to talk about like, you know, there was slavery beforehand and things of that nature, but it's like you got to understand the magnitude of what that slavery has done. You're talking about slavery as far as like a form of indentured servitude, or a form of like a certain, you know, I'm talking about like in Africa and things of that nature, where it was like the slavery that slaves had a certain type of freedoms that we our ancestors here never got to see. That, you know, it's very important to look at the mental deconstruction, psychological, the physical, emotional deconstruction of the African, of the black people that were here, of the Africans that were brought here, the indigenous people, like all these this psychological deconstruction, and especially just the ripping of total culture from people that took place. And then it's like, you know, the working throughout time and Jim Crow and things of that nature, of like trying to find a footing to have your feet cut off to where you, in Tulsa, and then you got, you know, the MOVE movement and like you know, bombing and all these different like segments of our history where it's like you try to get the footing, even in segregation. All right, we can't touch this. All right, well, fine. Well, we'll try to do our own thing. It's like, no, we don't want you to do your own thing. We don't want any other mode or method for you to feel like you can be in a space of independence, of personal independence, of personal economic growth, because economic growth means money, means power, means we might be overthrown, which is all what it is. It's all it's been. Is idea this idea of power dynamic. And one thing about how that relates, like within the European mindset of how people of humanity has operated over the years, the colonization across continents, of European settlement here and there and everywhere you want to call it. Settlement is like a nice word. Versus when you think of the African landscape and African culture and African thought and emotional processes, is very much relationship and tribe and people and your community and your village. It's not about a power dynamic. It's not about who is, you know, I mean, yeah, okay, you have hierarchies and things of that nature, but it's not necessarily about a power dynamic per se. Like, you must be annihilated because I'm threatened by what you could do just by existing to my people, just by existing. And like history, it behooves history to really understand that. History meaning people that learn it and people that claim to teach it, is look at it for what it is and what it has been. This relationship with power versus relationship with people, and how we relate to one another in a human landscape. And a lot of that is like, when you want to think of like even like tribal things of like how criminals are treated in Africa. In certain most cases, it's like is not, hey, you're going to jail per se, but like, okay, you've done a wrong to the village, and we're clear on this, and we're gonna hash this out as a community together to get your proper punishment. It may look a certain way, but it may also be uplifting to help you not realize your folly of your ways and not do this again and be back with your village. You know, whether it's a sacred dance or like the people coming together to make you understand and feel what the love is, to have you be in a space, I'm never going to do this again. How, you know, for shame for doing this to my people, to rob or to steal, whatever that, you know, that offense looked like, right? Whereas here, it's like you're getting everything known to man done to you to show punishment, to show that our power is like, look, you do this, we're going to cut you down to size. We're going to kill you. We're going to cut your genitalia off. We're going to kill your children. We're going to do all these different things to make an example of people in a very horrible way. Lynchings were like public entertainment. You know what I mean? Just as much as a circus. Lynchings were like, it was just as much of a circus a display of just something for people to do, rather than like, look, these are people that are being like mistreated
there should
and
be
destroyed.
an emotional and a spiritual compass that sets in at some point and says,
it has to.
You know what? Wow, this probably isn't okay.
This might not be okay.
Wow, this is really bad.
So to look at it from years and years of the past, and it's still like in another form, when you got police brutality and then like, you know, discrimination within jobs and or eating places and things like that, like it's still just another form. And it's like to the fact that there hasn't been a grasp of this is not okay under a moral compass.
Facts.
Is disheartening, for to lack of a better term, like to see that this is where we still are even in 2019 within the human condition, and that looking at the Constitution that has not had the African in mind as a human, under looking at who humans are and who gets the rights, who gets the justice, and who gets the freedom for all under this documentation that has bound this country and has laid the law of the land of this country that we helped build, that we the majority of the most potent, the most important inventions of our time, many were built by slaves that did not have the power to patent.
Ashe.
You know what I mean? Like you want to look at those.
Well, let's not talk about meritorious manumission. That's another one. We can get at that. But go ahead.
Right. And like looking at even like the free, quote unquote, African, the free black people that have like, you know, we did that have contributed to things like the GPS, like the mining the proper minerals and what have you, the cobalts that like exist in our iPhones and MacBooks and things of that nature, the air conditioner, the video game, the like, you know, like
the
all these different
all
these different parts, these vital tools that we use every single day that do not get credited for the source, which tends to be more often than not a person of the African diaspora experience.
Yep.
You know, and so here's what I'm doing. What's happening?
Right.
Here's what I'm doing. Looking at it. Okay. Looking at it from that lens. Because we're in a state of like a quote unquote awakeness, a consciousness that is shifting like a slow churning like locomotive.
Right.
Slow churning, but it's getting there. We're getting there. We're not. This is not a dismiss of what's been taking place thus far over the past few years alone. Oh Jesus!
Right.
The past few years alone, of progress, but there's still a lot more to go for us as Black people, just within ourselves. You know, that we've gone to a space where there's this idea of like we've accepted X and we've accepted Y, we've accepted Z, but the Black conversation, even within the Black community itself, is still up in the air, and there's still a confusion of what's right to accept and who's ready to have the conversation. What does revolution look like? Who is ready for it? Who has the right to sit at the table? Who is a human? Who should lead it?
And the elitist intellectuals, right? Let me cut you across, right?
No, go ahead. You can add to it. I'm gonna go take it.
Right, no, it's okay. You can,
okay, all right.
The elitist, like intellectual, right? There's a place. There's a landscape here, right? And there is a landscape of development. And thank you guys for coming in.
Yes,
Thank you all for checking in. I'm going to go ahead and check in. Appreciate you for coming in.
Again, it's the Soundbytes International. We in here, so we check in with you guys. You're going to get right.
To just, for receiving from us, it matters. And thank you for joining the conversation.
Absolutely. Please join the conversation.
Share the link, join the conversation, add your comments, and add your input.
Absolutely. Blessings, Sister Bacha, Jade, Sean, Brother Sean, thank you for coming in. Sister Carol, Sister Aisha, thank you for coming in.
Thank you so much for coming in.
Please continue to
Brother
join the
Hero,
conversation.
Thank you for coming in.
Thank you for talking to us and being with us and just taking in information and sharing it. We appreciate you guys. We just want to do our best to bring it to you, right?
My sister said, we're a space for the national tour, beloved. We're definitely a space for that. We're here for the collaboration. Let us do this.
The mass must be reminded.
We have to. Yes, Ashe.
Totally.
So there's a landscape of development that occurs as you become African, as you take in your identity. And I know that we are trying to, and this is what I personally experienced. This is why I share my stories, my life, the social experiment, because this work, it doesn't work unless you actually apply it to the living space. You have to go out and do it. So my life, the social experiment, experimentation, meaning I'm actually doing something that nobody gave me any leadership with. I'm kind of feeling, I did some research, I did some background, and I'm trying some things out because I'm also guided by my moral compass and my ancestors.
Right.
There's no validation nowhere saying, yes, check, do this, don't do this, don't do this. And then there are not enough people in the space that are actually living the Ma'at life of integrity around this revolution conversation. And it is revolutionary to take back possession of your mind.
Absolutely.
Let's be clear. Let's be clear that it is revolutionary to take back possession of your mind and to take back possession of your soul and to call forward your ancestors and to honor and give them respect and to hold them up at their highest, Ashe. Indeed, that is revolutionary. I'm not even talking about picking up no weapons and protesting and screaming on any microphones. I am only talking about taking back possession of your mind and your soul.
Ashe.
Okay? So we're trying to negotiate this conversation within a landscape of becoming. So the educational piece is necessary. Okay? I tell you guys that I go through, people hate to see me coming. Just as much as there are people in this world that love me, there are people in this world that hate me. I am a natural born Libra, and I live by the Ma'at skills. So let us be clear. Your heart should be as light as a feather at all times. Okay? So I take notice of it. It doesn't impact me in any way. I take notice of it. And I'm also cluing you into what you are going to be dealing with as you become. And I'm telling you that you need to be strong, and you'll need to stand fast, and you'll need to call for your ancestors for guidance and stay on the path. Because the goal here is to take back possession of your mind and your spirit. Clip in the Matrix. I love to give the clip in the Matrix. A lot of people saw the movie, and it's a very good picture. He says, Morpheus says, you know, we don't usually unplug people this old, right? And he said, hey, so why do my eyes hurt? Because you've never used them.
Okay.
When you see with your own eyes for the first time, it's going to be some challenge. You're going to have some welling up anxiety, some nervousness, some, I don't know if this is going to work. This footing might not should. Maybe I shouldn't say this. Maybe I shouldn't wear that. Maybe I shouldn't go here. I live a very regimented life. There are certain things I participate in, certain things I don't participate in. Because if it doesn't balance out, it's good or bad, or it hinders, that's where it stands with me. There is no middle ground when it comes to that. And some people say that's strict. No, that's not strict. That's Ma'at. That's African, right? That's African. So when you develop that place, education is a part of it. Malcolm X is on my right shoulder, and Fannie Lou Hamer is on my left shoulder for the fight and the endurance, for the balance. Okay? So Malcolm X loved the people with a heart of agape love. And they loved him with agape love. That is a love that is so of great magnitude and intimacy, that I care for your well-being. I care for the single mother. I care for the grandmother carrying her groceries and she's been hard at work and it's a hot sun. I care for young men on the street without any leadership or brotherhood or support. I care for the brother who, you know, did nothing, got in his car and got pulled over by the police and didn't make it home that night. I care for you, African brother and African sister. So he had a sense of agape love. And this is what I wanted to bring into the space. So this is a conversation of the elitist educated African, or the one who, and that means that, you know, you want to look down on other people, but there's a space for all these things that comes into your evolution of becoming African. Yes, you need the research. Yes, you need to do the reading. Yes, you need to experience. But guess what? It's a lot of work. You're talking to me about 25 years. I've been mastering this thing for over 25 years. My journey, I remember my first cognitive thought, I was 9 years old. So my journey started very young. The ancestors was tugging at me from day one. Would not let me sleep, could not sleep. Went through all types of emotional and experiences that if I had gotten into the system, hey, I could have been, you know, in a mental institution somewhere if I decided to fall into that space. If I decided to say, oh, well, you know what? These things are happening. This awakening in my spirit is happening. It's unsettling. Yes, it's going to be unsettling because there will be a war of the minds. You are going to have to negotiate against the matrix because we're living in a society that is built on a place where it's okay to bomb 11 people in a house, 6 children, and leave them for dead at 1985. This is the world we live in. We live in a world that will put crack cocaine into communities of color to fund the contra-Iran wars. We live in a country that would hire a clown, right? So we were looking at, you guys are looking at the Central Park 5. I lived that story. When it was occurring, I was under tremendous trauma. Because at that age, like I said, this journey didn't start yesterday. This is becoming a very long journey of practicing being the work. Mm-hmm. So once you get the information, and I ran out there and I tried to get on my soapbox because the only thing I had was the preacher, the street preacher, and the other dude out there, the Israelite brothers, and anybody else in the space who just shouting in the street their truth. That's all I had. So I ran out there and tried to tell everybody I knew and galvanize people, and boy, they were mad. Mm-hmm. They were holding tight to their lies that they thought was truth. So I'm not a space for haggling with you about this. This is my truth. Mm-hmm. And not only is it my truth, there's documentation to corroborate my position. Mm-hmm. Now, it's up to you to accept that truth. It's up to you to make that truth your living steps, your daily, one foot in front of another, daily living steps. And there are going to be a lot of things in your life that you will not be able to participate in, practice, behave, say, do, eat when you become African. Mm-hmm. When you take your body and you say, I am African and I matter, and my ancestors matter, and I'm standing for the fact that their lives were taken for no reason, some of them, many of them, and then go back even further past, because slavery is not the history of the African. No. Slavery is not the beginning of history for the African. There is a narrative in our space that would like for you to believe that African people arrived with slavery. Mm. There was a lot of life when Africa civilized the world long before slavery. Mm-hmm. So there is a diabolical mathematical equation to make sure that you stay below.
Slavery is a horrific chapter of our history, but it's not. It's not where the story begins. Absolutely not.
It's not where we begin.
It's definitely not where the story begins. But where the story continues and having these conversations, an authentic conversation would have us peeling back the layers of what's happening and of our truth and what our personal standpoint gets to be in the world today. It's a process, and it's an honest process with yourself. It can get funky, you can get real, but you got to go through it in order to get to the answers. And sometimes the answer is more questions, right? But the question until you're just that much closer in your journey to self. Because if you don't know yourself, then you don't know where you're going. You don't know who you've been in order to get to where you truly are. Just grasping for straws and trying to figure out American dreams and things of that nature. Like, you are the American dream. You are the real dream. And manifest it into life, because you're through by virtue of ancestral and epigenetic traumas leading to strength, leading to survival, leading to the space of like, I'm still here. Then you still have a job to do, and you still have a story to continue, right? So being real with conversation, addressing it and facing it head on is the courage to face your history, to face who you are, to be your best self, and it is paramount that we get to that space, preferably not alone, but together, and that's the biggest piece. We have to pull the village back together. We have to pull the village back together.
We got to take understanding of ourselves as a unit, as a collective. This individualized consciousness is another one of those things that subtly snuck up on us as people.
Don't let the media
fool you. It snuck up that they maneuvered it, and then they. Who are they? Who are they? Listen, there's a lot of proof as to who they are. There's a lot of proof of who they where to point fingers, but we don't want to do that. And I'm not a space for that, because guess what? When you love in yourself, all of that stuff right there doesn't even matter. Mm-hmm. See, you don't even have to fight. The movie Matrix, he said, "Listen, are you telling me I can dodge bullets? No, I'm not. I'm telling you, when you're ready, you won't have to."
Boom.
When you're ready, you won't have to. When you are ready to stand up in African, you won't have to do that. And then there will be a collective mind state that if we need to protect ourselves, then so be it. But our biggest asset is our unity. Our unity.
Moja.
Umoja. That is our biggest asset. And, you know, so many of our people, we're trapped in so many other spaces. Education is a part of elevating. Taking a spiritual journey is a part of your elevation as an African. Understanding your people and the migration of your people and the development of your people across historical land and time, that is necessary for your development as an African. In order to reshape your mind and to diminish and erase all the illusion, to bring in all the air and clear all of this smoke out of the place. Because if you've ever seen a magician, the goal of the musician is to always keep you looking at one hand while he's doing something else with the other. And
then to really get in tune with that edification means you have to literally erase any of that coming from your an oppressive mind. Because oppressive mind is not going to tell you your history. They're going to tell you the history they want you to believe to keep you in that space. So it takes a commitment to getting to that education, to that journey, to free the mind from the shackles of what's been put forth the past, like, how many years?
It's been a lot of programming. It's been
a lot of programming.
It's been since slavery. It's been since the inception of slavery.
You want to talk about 400 years. You want to talk about there's a lot of work to be done. Prior
to that, the transatlantic slave trade indoctrinated African people in Africa, on the African continent as well. It has always been seen that as the Sun people, there's always a reason to exploit these people. There's always been a reason. It's always been looked at as your way of being, who you are is weak. And that's been programmed into the society. There has been a consciousness, a normalization of war. It's a consciousness, a normalization. Like I said, if they come in your house and take your TV, what you gonna do about that? If a bunch of people, if 20 people come to your door and want to take your TV, guess what? They got to take that TV, or they're gonna take you. What you gonna do about it? You in your house thinking that it's all lovely, lovey-dovey, everybody's a wonderful space, this is a beautiful home, and someone busts in your house to take your possessions. These folks roll up at people's, on their docks with rhetoric, because at first they sent scouts, right? And I don't know if you guys know, but the scouts were the missionaries, the mercenaries, the missionaries. They're there to scout, to take the temperature of the social landscape of the people. Maybe they don't even know it. Maybe they're not even aware that they've been given a job and that they have to report back what their findings were. They're taking the temperature. There is a need to address the social behaviors of our people. As you become African, we have to change the way we conduct business, the way we behave towards each other, the way we rear our children, the way we have relationships. When you become African, you take back possession of your African mind. All of these things are a part of that conversation. And our African ancestors have all of this information. And you have to get to them to gain the strength in your heart and in your mind, because it's coded within you. You don't need anyone to slam the gavel and say, motion carried. You are the judge. You can weigh it out. You collect the information. You fortify your spirit. You take back possession of your mind. You instill right living, right seeing, speaking, and being within your being. You breathe life. And behold, man became a living creature. What is life? Knowledge is power. Knowledge is life. Malcolm X said the homemade education. Education is the root, is the piece of freedom for African people. This is the way you get to create it. And you get to look towards your ancestors. Without it, it's a diabolical mind shift that's happening. You walk around here like this. I always talk about the zombies. I be joking about the zombies. But the zombies, that's real. Let me tell you what's so real about the zombies. It's not real. I'm metaphoric, right? I got it. I'm metaphoric, right? So what's real about the zombies? And what's real about the show in particular? What is it? The Walking Dead. If you guys want to see something about how real it can get on the social landscape of becoming and being in the world up around the zombies, you might want to take a look at engage your experience of watching The Walking Dead from a perspective of knowing that you are a part of a people who are trying to get free, and you have to get out and navigate among people who are zombies.
Mm-hmm.
And then now that you're awake, there are also other little pockets of people that are also awake, and they have their own agendas.
Mm-hmm.
And how are they going to run game or finagle, beguile you? How are they going to catch you and have you thinking one thing is sweet, and then they turn around and be trying to eat you because they need food? I'm just saying.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I'm here for the metaphor, right? I'm here for the picture. I'm here for the visual, right? And all of these pieces are part of our social landscape, so we get to look at them and experience them for what they are worth, and try to use all these pieces, because the master's tools will never dismantle the master's house.
Right.
However, all things work together for the good.
Mm-hmm.
Divine essence, all things can work together for the good when you've infused it with your divine essence.
Mm.
If you choose it to work a certain type of way, it will. And that is why we give honor to our ancestors, because they paved the way for us.
Mm-hmm.
They paved the way for us, and their lives were taken and cut short for no reason.
I'm sure. I was speaking of metaphors. One of the things that was coming to mind when you were talking, I was thinking about the scene in Avengers with when Thanos first found Gamora,
right?
And just like that whole idea, like I find it akin to like Thanos being this metaphor of like what white supremacy is. You know what I mean? Because it's like you have here him and his troops are destroying this young girl's people.
Yes.
And you know, she's looking for a parental unit, and like he's like, oh, he sees she's the ticket to whatever it is she's gonna grow up to end up ultimately this assassin, right? And then he sees her amidst this, knowing what he's doing to her people, and brings her to the side and is like, here, let me show you what it looks like to be cared for and balanced. And here's a weapon of destruction. And here, like, let me show you what this looks like. See, this is something that's balanced as the world should be. This is what the world should be. But let me turn your head as my people kill your people. Don't worry about that distraction over there. Look, just focus on this. And she grows and grows to be this weapon, this reluctant, begrudging weapon of his destruction of worlds.
Well, I also
and
got to look
stuck in this place.
I looked at that particular scene also, and I said that, it is that white supremacist structure's ability to feel like, well, this one little piece of me makes me humanity. Mm-hmm. What I'm doing is entirely savage right now. I am wiping out an entire, this genocide on this entire population, but I'm gonna keep this little girl, right?
And wiping out under the guise of this other's insane sociopathic.
It was ridiculous. It had enough balance in me. Like, what are you talking about? And who are you to decide? Who are you to decide?
Right.
You don't have the right to decide that the earth is overcrowded. Right. The earth is not overcrowded. The earth it is entirely self-sustaining. Mm-hmm. Okay? And natural selection always takes care of the earth. Mother Earth is a growing organism. Mm-hmm. And no, the earth is not overpopulated. And no, we're not having a shortage of food, but we damn sure got a whole lot of highways and byways and huge towers of people working, doing what in a society that continues to suck the Mother Earth, right? Because a lot of what we do hurts the earth.
Yeah.
The work that we do, a lot of it, unless it's human work, most of the things that we look at and we say these are progress, this is progress, these are things that we're doing that's hurting the earth.
Right.
Right? So,
but I speak to it more of like this idea of like, getting into the space where she got to, being a guardian and things like that. Like, look, like enough is enough. And that taking a revolutionary chance of like, I'm going to combat this. I'm going to break free of these chains, these mental chains of like, I'm forced to be in this space to do the bidding of pain and destruction of other people, even if it includes my people or what have you. Like, it's that association. Like, how do we get into the enough is enough revolutionary mindset to take all hands on deck and step up to who's been putting us down for so long. So when I saw that juxtaposition,
I want to step up, because I think that And that's a conversation that's in a lot of
what does that look
spaces.
like? Yeah.
Like the step
It's a
up
lot of the
conversation,
talk, but yeah, exactly.
the military perspective of it. Like, what does that look like? Protection, what does it look like?
Right.
I'm not even gonna say military because at this point it's not military. It's not war. African people get to protect themselves.
That's not even that's not even the first mode. That's not even the first mode. That's not even the first mode. At this point,
we literally have to protect ourselves. We have to protect our minds. We have to protect our children, our future. We have to protect our spirits. We literally have to like put this whole cloaking experience around ourselves so that we protect the images that we take into our minds, because there is a science behind what your unconscious mind is taking in. And that's part of where the warring will occur.
Right.
The warring will occur when you are trying to balance your logical front mind with your unconscious, subconscious mind. Okay? So that's where that war will occur. Because even unbeknownst to yourself, you humdrumming every day, living in life. This is why we talk about these social things like television, like entertainment. We talk about what's in the social space, because those are the things, those subtle signals is what's going into your subconscious mind. And that's where so much of that's where there's so much imbalance in the African being able to see African. This is why I say to you, African, see an African. Love an African. Breathe an African. Create your career African. Devise community African. We've been building community, making all these opportunities to create space. And let me tell you, it's a tussle with our family because they are warring with rationalizing and balancing out the space that they're in, because the space has been designed with so many checks and balances that it nearly forces you at every turn to compromise.
And hold up the flag. Fighting just to hold up the flag. Fighting is to hold up who you are. And that fight has to end.
That is an impact that I believe is the crime against humanity. The fact that you cannot wake up every day and be in your full experience, your living experience, is an offense to your human experience. Because you didn't come into this life to create and unpack someone else's consciousness. You came here as an African to be African and to expand with your African community as a contributing member of a thriving community.
Yeah. Okay?
Ashe. So let it be done.
So we wanted to get into that space. I mean, this conversation is ongoing, so really, this is every week, every day conversation, right? So, we're gonna wrap up, and we wanted before we leave, we'll get into some music, but we just wanted to regularly share with you guys. We're here every week. Soundbytes International Radio. Follow us on Facebook if you're not already. Soundbytes International. Soundbytes International Radio on Instagram. We have the conversation daily on that, and we're really here to talk to our people, because the conversation is the start, right? As I said in the beginning of the show, the conversation is the start. That's how you gotta get to the root of the matter in order to grow, right? You know, we are the seeds, and as long as we continue to grow, then we have a long-standing, flourishing history that, you know, our futures can benefit from. Futures being our youth, our children, the village to come and to continue to grow. Just follow us, check in with us, you know, each week on the live, and we're here for y'all. This is Soundbytes International Radio.
We'll be taking calls. We'll be taking.
Yeah, we're working on that.
We're building out the conversation so that we can have call-ins.
Yeah, for sure.
And we can unpack what matters to you and how can we support you in elevating your consciousness and becoming African.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah.
Taking back possession of your African mind.
Right.
How can we do that? How can we stand for Black consciousness, African consciousness?
Yeah. And
in a world where there's a lot of other things that are happening.
Yeah, and if you have topics you feel like we should discuss, you want to talk to us about, let us know. You know, send us a message, or you know, if you feel like you want to be a guest, you know, let us know. However we can get to expand on the conversation is how we can get to where we need to be, get closer and closer to the finish line. So we're gonna get up out of here, and just wanted to play a little track for you. This is a new track from Harlem brother Rainstorm, featuring yours truly, called, aptly titled, Revolution, produced by Roy Dean. So we want to get up out of here with some vibes, like, get the thoughts flowing and the juices as you head off to sleep, and then, wake up for a new day. So this is Soundbytes International Radio, where Black consciousness is the claim, one world is the aim. We will see you next week. Please stick around on the live for a bit. We're gonna be up here a bit. If you want to come jump in the chat for some more, check out this music and enjoy, y'all. One love. This is Soundbytes International Radio.
Standing around your boy, you got things saying, looking cool and shit. Standing up. 22 over, buyers remorse, they feeling the force. Like Nat Turner, all on their porch. Man, of course the hair is coarse, so the crowd don't shit. Cause of the tricks, it's how my ancestors drowned on shit. I swear to God, yeah, my God, let my spirit be still. Cause the colonizer mind won't let my mental be chill. Look in the eyes of a panther, salute to my foot. 50 plus years in the same fight, gotta stay woke. Man, they try to lower us to sleep, play my people for sheep. Diabolically underhanded, sweep the rough from my feet. If we play in this game, then fuck it. I'm playing for kicks, march over the fist high to know my family's weak. Black and brown still in the crosshairs, feeling you warfare, the NRA can suck it. How you need more kids, check the bias and hate, I make America great. The revolution is now, cause the future can't wait. It's time to raise a fist high for the people. It's the same, we got to fight to the people. Time's now, the time is now to free you. Are you ready for revolution? Time to raise a fist high for the people. It's the same, we got to fight to the people. Time's now, the time is now to free you. Yeah. Want us to find a cheat codes, they ain't playing fair. Keep jacking up the trade fair, we ain't paying here. Want us to do the dirty work in the neighborhood, then when it's all cleaned up, guess who's staying there? They want the paper and the plastic to the blast up these walls fast enough to stop the roaches and the rat shit. Actually got places, but it's ill, no hot water, no clean water, or no sort of order. What we supposed to tell our sons and our daughters, what we fought for, to let a bigot stop us, it's not what we taught y'all. So for now, you're forewarned, just move on and forward, let nothing hold you back. Just do that, Kaepernick, oh Lord, it's going overboard. Try to make it by the flag, you know it's so much more. Love who you wanna love, there's no limit involved. If you ever felt the limits, then listen, this is for y'all, for all. It's time to raise a fist high for the people. It's the same, we gotta fight to the people. Time's now, the time is now to free you. Are you ready for revolution? Time to raise a fist high for the people. It's the same, we gotta fight to the people. Time's now, the time is now to free you. Are you ready for revolution?
Soundbytes, y'all. One love. Peace.